Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for a discussion about the use of theater, comedy, and film in climate change education, and in particular in your worldwide teach-in on climate and justice. So we're a small enough group that we can, I think, let's start by introducing ourselves. So I'm David Blockstein. I'm the co-director of the teach-in, and I am an ecologist, and I live in Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. Even, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm apologize when I'm working hard to get on my computer instead of my phone, but my name is Eben.
Same problem.
Yeah, my name is Eben Goodstein, and I'm, along with David, running the national teach-in, the worldwide teach-in. I'm an economist and direct graduate programs in sustainability at Bard College in New York.
Great. And Winnie, since you're right on our screen, you want to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Winnie Scher at Bullfrog Films, and we distribute documentaries for educational use to all different kinds of facilities and institutions. And I'm signing in on this one because I would like to see a community-wide event on our community television, at the same time possibly staffed by the local college faculty, to see if we can have a broader discussion in this community. And I think some of these materials might be a good approach for that as well.
That's great. And what community are you in, Winnie?
It's Berks County, Pennsylvania. So there's a very effective, wonderful community television called BCTV that we're involved with.
Nice, nice. Okay. And Annie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Annie Furman. I'm an MFA candidate at the UBC Okanagan, so University of British Columbia. And I actually just found out about this today from some collaborators that I'm working with on our worldwide teach-in here. And I'm actually working in theater for climate communication is my area of study. So excited to be here and meet you all.
Well, that sounds perfect. Yeah, and I participated virtually in your teach-in last year, which was great. Okay, and then Julia.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia Ludewig. I'm an assistant professor of German at Allegheny College in Northwestern Pennsylvania. Apologies for not showing my video. I'm half asleep, but still very, very much interested in listening and learning. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for being with us once again, and as we give you your Wednesday night bedtime stories here. And we're all looking forward to hearing our playwright, Maha. I think we can hear you now, maybe.
Okay, great. I did just the opposite. I switched from the laptop to my phone and now it's working.
Okay, great. Well,
I'm Maha Hasan.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And I'm from Pakistan. I'm a theater and a screen actor here, but I have a background of environmental engineering, so which is why I'm here.
Great, and we'll give you more chance in a few minutes, where we're going to be talking. Maha is one of our three awardees of our screenwriting competition, playwriting competition. So we'll give her a few minutes, but we're delighted you're able to be with us. So Eben, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of the teach-in through whatever technology you're on at the moment?
We're a very small group tonight, but I want to thank you all for being here. And we're very excited to broaden this conversation beyond the small group to the world that we are engaged in. So The Worldwide Teach-In is an ongoing effort in global collaborative climate education. David and I have been doing this work now for 4 years. Last year, we had about 340 colleges, universities, high schools, other institutions around the world who participated in our coming together in late March to hold a series of climate education events. About 50,000 people were involved in 50 countries. And the basic theory behind this work is that we're stronger together, right? There are many people doing climate education around the world, and this is an opportunity for us to just leverage that community and for each of us to make our events and our voices louder and more powerful. In particular, we're interested in reaching beyond the 30 or so people who will typically show up if you have a climate event or show a bullfrog film or have a speaker on climate on your campus. Our strategy for doing that is to try and reach out to the increasing number of climate concerned people on campus and faculty and staff in particular, right? We're at a point now where 50, 70, 90% of teachers and staff members understand what climate change is. They're worried, they're deeply personally frightened, anxious, in despair about the state of climate change. And yet they're not really doing anything about it. They're not talking about it. They're just teaching their chemistry classes or their history classes and what we'd really like to do is empower them to begin bringing climate conversation into their classrooms, even though they're non-climate experts, even though they're not teaching about climate change. And so the idea is that if you're a psychologist, you can still talk about despair, climate despair, and what psychologists see as the remedy for that. Or if you're an artist, you can talk about how artists are responding to climate change. Or if you're a chemist, you can talk about how chemistry is being used in the service of climate solutions. And so that really is the secret sauce, if you will, of the teach-in. And one of the ways that we want to reach out beyond the usual group of people engaged is using theater and comedy and create opportunities for college and high school, theater students or members of theater clubs to produce short works and create discussion around those. And so one of the things that we did this year was we held a climate playwriting contest, global contest. We had over 40 submissions and had a team of judges. And Maha's submission was one of the 3 top ones that we chose to feature. And she very generously agreed to allow production of that play without any charge or any cost for people who are involved with the teach-in for the next 3 months. So our goal really was to generate a series of 3 5 to 7 minute plays that could be performed or read on campus to spark discussion and to bring in people who otherwise wouldn't have been involved. And of course, theater is a very powerful tool for doing that. So this morning we had another one of these sessions. We had 2 of our other playwrights discussing their work. And so tonight we're very pleased to have Maha with us. And we'll ask you to talk a little bit about your work. And then I will talk a little bit about the comedy options that we've developed, because that's another avenue to engage beyond the usual suspects. And then we'll hear from Bullfrog Films. It's an august organization that's been around for decades, providing fabulous opportunities. Our partner in the program, so it's one of the ways, additional ways that we're trying to do outreach. So with that, David, do you want to provide Maha a bit of an introduction, and then we'll hear from her.
Sure. Yeah. So once again, thank you all for being with us, and especially to Maha. So so Maha is we talk about being cross-disciplinary, and Maha is certainly a great example of that. She's a trained theater artist, an actor, and a writer, but she also, as she said, has a degree in environmental engineering from the National University of Sciences and Technology in Islamabad, and she got training in theater arts from the National Academy of Performing Arts in Karachi, and has acted in a variety of media, media, and her focus really is to raise awareness on environmental issues through her writing, and focused on Pakistan and South Asia. And so we're delighted to have you with us. We're working with some really good people in Pakistan. We have a lot of students who we're reaching out to in Pakistan as well. And so we hope to work with you over the next couple of months and see if we can get some students and others to be performing your play, which is titled in English, When Birds Fly Away. And I like that because I'm an ornithologist. Actually, I don't like them flying away, but I like to focus on birds. And the play is written in Urdu, so it will be something that is really focused in, I think, on the region, and people in the region will be able to experience that. So go ahead, Maha, why don't you tell us about your play, since none of us actually read Urdu, at least maybe some of us do, but even and I do not.
First of all, thank you for introducing me so well. It was a lovely introduction. My play is essentially about how climate change causes each element of the ecosystem to completely lose their place and their purpose in the society. So the play revolves around a farmer, two farmers, and a bird, as the name suggests. Now, a farmer who is self-sufficient and provides for the society at large suddenly loses his identity and his value because of the extreme reoccurring droughts, which is further fueled by climate change. And when he goes elsewhere, he can never be a farmer again. He's switched from being the provider to being at the mercy of others. And he knows that sooner or later, he will be looked as a burden in this new ecosystem. Similarly, a bird that used to support its local system and add to the biodiversity becomes a cause of disruption in another environment. So I'm hoping that this play will make the audience aware about climate change and how it's damaging people, not only financially and economically, but also socially and emotionally. And unfortunately, all these people are the ones who contribute least to the climate change. They're not the emitters.
Right.
But, still they suffer the most. And in some places, they are compelled to become a part of the very dynamics that causes climate to change, so drastically. They lose their positions as farmers. They're then working for the factories that are damaging the environment, that damage their environment. So it's basically a story of cyclic loss, I would say.
Yeah, sounds very powerful. Thank you. And what are your thoughts in terms of how you would like to see the play staged? With, as I say, we're going to be reaching out to students at Aga Khan University, and I don't know if you whether you think this is a play that is also kind of what ages, or maybe how young children do you think would be appropriate for either staging or viewing the play?
I think it's quite a simple play. Again, the instructions really, made us write a very comprehensive play that can be done in different places by different people.
Right.
So it only requires 2 people and a bench, and that's the power of theater. You don't need elaborate sets. You can perform it anywhere. So just 2 people, a bench, and I think it's very simply written for as far as the language is also concerned. So I think university students, college students can easily perform it. There's Aga Khan University, and then there's also NAPA itself, National Academy of Performing Arts, from where I was trained. The students over there are pretty young. They're in the age group of 18 to 30. So yeah, I
Great.
think
Okay,
that's all.
great, thank you. Yeah, and maybe, I know how to reach out to people at Aga Khan, but maybe you can help us to reach out to people at NAPA and other institutions.
I'd love to. I'd love to
Yeah.
help.
And we will be putting the script in Urdu on our website, and also biographical information about Maha. And I think it's important with the local context that it's a play written in Urdu for the local communities, and so rather than we Americans taking the temptation to just kind of translate it, that I think it's something that is it's locally rooted, and that's important.
I think though that it would be great if it can be showed in the US, because again, as I said, that we're not the biggest emitters in the world.
Right.
We
Right,
contribute really, really less. So I don't know how that can change anything for us if we show it to our own people, because they know the reality. They're suffering from this reality. So maybe I can get someone to translate it. I can translate it myself also.
Okay,
Just
well,
to see if it can be used elsewhere too, so that people understand that it has consequences to on other communities also.
yeah, well, that would be great. Yeah, and I didn't want to be assuming any sort of take cultural appropriation of your intellectual property, but if you're willing to do that, that would be great, because I think
I'd be happy to.
I think our English speaking audiences would be very interested in that.
No, you guys are doing such a great job. I think this will add something to it.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, and your point, I think, as a voice of the world that emits much less and is impacted much greater is a really important one for Americans and Canadians and others to be hearing. Well, let's see. Do any of you have any comments or questions for Maha that you want to ask at this point?
I'm curious, what inspired you to write the play? Is there some particular story or vision or?
Yeah, so when I was a student, I was interning at this environmental consultancy, and I read environmental impact assessments quite a lot. And it was about a coal-fired plant that was going to be installed in an area called Thar, which is quite affected by climate change. And I loved how they wrote everything, and then the flora and fauna of the area, and all that sweet words that EIAs usually have. And that sort of that bothered me back then. I did not pursue it. I went into performing arts, and then when this came up, I just could not get it out of my head, and then I wrote about it.
Well, certainly we've all been devastated as observers and by the floods in Pakistan this year. I mean, in my mind, this is probably the second sort of regional massive climate event that we've experienced after the drought in the Horn of Africa and Syria. It's just unimaginable what that life must have been like and still is like for people who were driven from their homes by that event. So it's what we're all working hard to prevent. So thank you very much for your contribution. So perhaps, yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to add that I agree that it's really important to translate it into other languages, and because the people living in the belly of the beast have to learn to listen to the rest of the world to hear the way out of this, because our oil dependence isn't going to lead us out of it.
Yeah. So should we segue to climate comedy now, David?
Yeah, so I think it's a great transition now from, but I think this, this is all part of, Evan's an economist, I'm an ecologist, and we know that most people are not moved by numbers, and that we need to be working with the arts and other approaches that move people's spirits and hearts. And so comedy is something that most people don't associate with climate change. So go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I was just trying to share my screen, and I seem to be having trouble doing that for some reason. So let me see what's going on there. You can't see my screen right now, am I correct?
No, we can't. Just your little box there.
Right, I'm going to try one more time, and if not, I will just talk you through.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Okay, so this is our website. worldwideteachin.org, and we have some short videos here that kind of explain what we're doing, but where this information about theater and comedy resides is on our models page. We have lots of different structures and models for engaging people in climate conversation, and here it is: add climate comedy and climate theater. We will be putting up the theater options here in a little while. We're also going to be producing a blog post that discusses the three plays a little bit, and our three playwrights, and we'll be promoting that globally to the universities who are participating, theater groups around the world. So we don't know, we can't promise how much adoption will be, but we're going to do our best to get these plays out in the world. And of course, they will live on our website for as long as they can live there. So it's not necessarily just this spring. We'll be raising awareness about this going forward. But also, there's a little thing you can click here for a template for a 60 to 90 minute climate comedy night. And this is just sort of another option to bring in a different group of students to talk about climate change in a different context, and just really getting together for some laughs, but also for some discussion about the usefulness or not of trying to approach climate from a comedy perspective and engage people from a comedy perspective. We did have some of our play submissions that were comically based. We didn't end up selecting any of them, but it was a good start. And so, essentially this template is going to suggest some short films, some short videos that you can screen. And I was told that the best way to organize the night is make sure everybody sits up front and close together, because people are more likely to laugh when they're in that environment. These 4 short films that are shown here come from a video contest that's run by the Greenhouse Effect, Inside the Greenhouse at the University of Colorado Boulder. And it's an annual video comedy contest. And they were kind enough to share some of their greatest hits. So you can show a couple of these, pause for some questions. What was the best part, or parts that didn't work for you? And did they relieve tension and open up the door to conversation? How does the magic of comedy work in these cases? So that's the basic idea. Show some funny things and have some conversation. And we've got a lot of different options here. You want to end probably with a provocation to students to imagine, is it possible for them to introduce comedy into their thinking and conversation about climate change? What would that look like, right? Could you tell a joke to get somebody interested? Or what does it mean at a personal level, right? When we step away from sort of professional comedians. And of course, you want to end with some ways to get concretely involved. There are actually on here the 4 best jokes on the internet. And I had to look hard to find some, including with climate change coming, economists predicted Canada will soon be the most powerful country in the world. And then you will be sorry. We'll all be sorry. So anyway, I might try, if I do this, I might try a little stand-up routine where I tell these 4 jokes and see whether people just walk up, walk out or not. If you do have a climate comedy group on your campus, you can ask them to be involved and perhaps do some stand-up or some improv.
A comedy group. Probably aren't too many campuses of climate comedy groups.
Yeah, just any normal comedy group, any comedy group. So this is just another option, right? It's a way that we are trying to provoke people into thinking about new ways to address climate change and broaden the conversation. It's late here on the East Coast, and we did want to just have a brief chance to talk. Again, it's our mission to now that we've got these 3 fabulous plays, to engage our audience, which is currently now well over 100 universities around the world participating, and hopefully heading into the 200 and 300s over the next couple of months with these options. Love to hear a little bit about Bullfrog Films. And so, Dave, what was your thinking tonight? Should we just?
Yeah, so let's give Winnie a chance to talk about Bullfrog Films, and we'll be seeing this week some of the things that Winnie has worked out with some of their filmmakers, so that may be involved or available for teaching. So go ahead, Winnie, and I just let everybody know we are recording this, and so we will be sharing this all more widely than just with the handful of us here tonight.
Well, I didn't expect to be doing this because I was trying to eavesdrop on how to create a good community television event for this, but it was difficult pinning down which films that we would feature, because it's important to give people a positive handle on that you can do something, you can make a difference. What you do matters, no matter what your field. And we have over the years had many films that tell us the problem, and people seem to respond best if they can get a handle on it. And so that's what we're trying to do. So the films that I'm featuring in our efforts are ones that are sort of feature length, campus-wide or community-wide, like a church congregation, a feature-length documentary that has a positive approach. But obviously we have lots of films we have a new series of short films that are all about food issues. And in a Sioux restaurant that's using indigenous traditional foods, and someone growing crickets for food, and someone doing a vertical greenhouse so that in a city you can be growing fresh lettuce for local delivery. Getting lobster fishermen to grow seaweed in the off season so that they don't have to chase the lobsters to Canada now all the time. And so it's trying to show that entrepreneurs, that artists, that people can do something themselves. And those short films are things that we think that could be used in a classroom, a 10-minute film to provoke a business class to start talking about this. So there's a lot of materials there, and it's we're hoping folks will find things that will work in various disciplines to provoke the discussions that need to happen. Because even almost 20 years ago, with a climate change film we showed at the AEG, the geographers meeting, the geographers were pretty much in tears. I mean, they know things aren't looking good even then, and how to not depress their students. I think led a lot of people to shut down and not deal. And obviously, we have to deal with it. And giving people the tools to get their engines going, I think is so important. What you're doing is so important. So I don't know how we can help, but we're going to try.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Winnie, maybe you could just, since not everybody knows Bullfrog Films, maybe just tell us a little bit about how Bullfrog works and how one actually accesses the films that you distribute.
Yeah. Well, Bullfrog Films has distributed documentaries on environmental and social justice issues for many, many years. We delivered things on DVDs most until the pandemic. And fortunately, we'd already set up a streaming site called DocuSeek, where academics can stream. And these days it's licensed through libraries. So a college can ask their librarian to get them hooked up to show any film they want. A lot of colleges are licensing access to the whole collection so that the stuff is already there and the faculty just doesn't even know it yet. So that makes it very useful for them to just, embed it in their courseware or, use it whenever they want, assign it to their students. It's all available through the streaming. That is also a good place for international educators to see what's available. We have a worldwide collection, but not everything do we have worldwide rights for, so that's a good filter. But any film that someone finds in our catalog, wherever they are, they can contact us and we can set up a screening if we have the rights. Some films have been very, very popular in Europe, especially. That film called True Cost, about the cost of fast fashion, and because it gives people a sense that they're involved in the choices they make, and they can do something about it. So, so those things can be arranged from Bullfrog as well.
Thanks. And you also can help to broker connections with the filmmakers to
Yes.
do both the in-person and virtual conversations at events. Is that right?
Right. Depending on where you are, where the filmmakers are, it can be virtual or in person, and we will try and link you up if you have an event and you want to show a film and zoom in the filmmaker. I'd be happy to do that.
Great. Well, thank you. So, are there any questions for Winnie?
No questions, just compliments.
Yeah,
Thank you for the great work that you're doing.
yeah. It's like I say, I know you guys have been around how long? Since the 70s?
This is our 50th year.
Wow.
We started at the first Earth Day in the US. So
Well, that's great. Yeah, well, we're happy to be working with you. So before we leave, I do want to just briefly mention the other two plays. So this morning we had the playwrights for those two plays, and that session is also recorded, and so we'll be putting both of them on our website, and then we'll also be sending each of you an email with the link not only to this session but to the other two sessions. So the other two plays. Oh, go ahead, Julia.
Didn't want to interrupt you, David.
No,
Go ahead.
no,
I just okay.
No, go ahead. That's fine because I have to remember the name of one of them.
There was there is one connection or addition that I just wanted to bring to your attention. I don't know if you've ever heard of the word or the concept of laughtivism. I heard about that about a year ago, and it seems to be very pertinent. It's the idea that activism works better, or is at least it's an alternative to the serious activism that we all know, if it pokes fun at actors like agents, social agents. One example being, for instance, I mean, I'm a German professor, so I remember particularly well one instance in which a leftovist group staged an apology by Volkswagen managers towards the American people. And so there's really a growing number of very interesting forms of activism, one of them being leftivism, and maybe that's something that you want to look into, even if just to put it on your website and say, like, here's another way that comedy and climate concerned action has surprising overlaps. Yeah, thank you.
No, that's great. Yes, and my father always told me it's better to laugh than to cry, and so and laughter can motivate us, because if we're feeling more positive, we're more likely to do things. So thank you for that. So I just wanted to briefly mention the two other plays. One is called All the Way Back, and I should say each of these are plays that are performed with 5 or fewer actors and in 7 to 10 minutes. All the Way Back is by Donna Latham, who describes herself as a masked feminist playwright from Chicago, and All the Way Back takes place in and around a diner in Houston, actually a food truck in Houston following Hurricane Harvey, which left the Houston area kind of the way that Pakistan was in September, and it's a story of 5 people and how they came to be together in this food truck, and both the interpersonal relationships and sort of a story of resilience that and I'm not giving it this great justice or scenario, but it's something that I think will inspire people to look at the consequences of climate change and the human relationships. The other play, After the Fire, has actually a lot of similarities. It's written by E. Salvador Chapman, who is a student at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this is a story that has a dialogue between 2 firefighters, one of whom is pretty much of a curmudgeon and even a bigot, and the other who, as it turns out, after hearing a lot of racist slights about indigenous people, turns out to be an indigenous people once each of them takes off their firefighting mask. And the theme, After the Fire, it's a complex play, but it's about the birth, the regrowth of life after devastating forest fires, and has a plot twist toward the end when you find out that there's a narrator who is actually 100 years in the future, looking back at this this conversation between these two actors. So I think they're, I mean, we had great plays. It's a shame that we had to choose among them, but these will all be up on our website very soon, and we'll have a blog post that you can share and to let others know about this. So, go ahead, Wendy.
Are all three of them then available to be performed anywhere?
Yes, yeah, and what the arrangement that we have with the playwrights is that, you know, the focus is to get them performed on for the teach-ins, or, you know, so we don't have a formal, you know, the exclusive use over the next 3 months, but that's our goal, is to get them performed over that time, and they can be performed anywhere. Yes, absolutely.
What if they were shown, performed on a community television? And then would they be allowed to be shown on YouTube?
I think we'd have to talk about that with the filmmakers.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the filmmakers, the playwrights.
right.
There was a question about television this morning, and I don't think it was really answered, because I think and Maha, you maybe want to comment on this as somebody who has worked in both live theater and in television, but there really is a difference in the appeal and the format and everything with when you're actually live as opposed to film. So Maha, I don't know, do you want to say anything about that?
Well, the other plays sounded terribly interesting. Would love to read them and love to watch them also. So if we can perform them in here also, that would be great. It would bind us all together. That,
Yeah.
you know, all of us are in this together, even if whatever the contribution is, at the end of the day, it's people who are suffering and who are going through it. And yes, I agree with David on that. Theater engages the audience in a completely different manner, especially now that people have such less attention span, you know, and we have so much material that we just pass through it. Theater can hold the audience more, but again, the lacking is that it is limited to the live audience. So I think if we can work both ways, why not? If we can do, you know, this whole theater run and then film it, then why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually would be.
Larger audience.
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying that it will be available to the larger audience, and I try to do as much as I can to help if we go along with it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I'm interested in, you know, I'd love to see how different groups, students and others perform these plays, and it'd be, you know, it'd be really interesting. And I'm sure as a playwright, you would find it very interesting to see how your play is performed in different venues and by different actors, and how different audiences react to them.
That would be a different experience altogether. It would be so much fun. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah. So now, you know, what we need to do is to, you know, hopefully convince, and we do have, you know, we'll be publicizing, you know, convince groups to take this on. So Annie, I'm interested, just before we break up, from your perspective as an MFA student involved in theater, what are your thoughts about what we've been talking about so far?
Yeah, I actually have one question that I was just thinking of. One of the things that I've noticed in creating and then performing plays around climate change and is that it really helps to have some kind of direct solution or an action that audience members can take right offered to them at the time of the play or shortly afterwards, or a recommendation of something that's included in a playbill or something like that. And so I was wondering for Maha, and then maybe also through David for the other two playwrights, if you had any specific sort of action items in mind, either locally or globally, that you'd really like associated with your plays in their performances.
Great question.
Okay, somehow I didn't really get the question. Would you?
Yeah, so the basic question, I think, is, you know, when you have, as people have, you know, watched these performances and been motivated, we hope to take action. You know, what kinds of things can we do so that people, for example, one thing that I do want to actually get up on our website is a couple of links and ideas for having people to have addresses of policymakers to communicate with directly. And I mean, you know, one of my friends is a climate organizer, runs a local NGO called Chesapeake Climate Action. And when he gives a talk, he has his postcards, he has the, you know, they're addressed, they're stamped, and or I don't know if they're stamped or but he has you fill them out, and then he will send them off to the decision makers after you write in your own words why this issue is important and what kinds of things you want to have happen. So that's an example.
Now, this has just got the ball rolling. Now I'm thinking about it. Because for me, I think it really ended with creating that awareness and then let people do their thing. It would, if it hopefully, you know, if it's in their subconscious, then they will be thinking about it and will be taking the right decisions. But yes, something can be actively done also. So there are a few organizations that are working on climate, and maybe we can have a talk later on, like a small Q&A session, and then people can sign up to volunteer. But I haven't thought much about it. I will think more about what can they do actively. If you guys have any ideas, I'd love to take them on.
Yeah, we can think and talk about that. And then I also want to mention that in our webinar, exactly 4 weeks from today, March 1st, we're going to have a couple of people from a group that we've just been partnering with this year called Write the World, Write with a W. And their presentation in 4 weeks is going to be about advocacy writing and how one can use writing or how to be more effective in writing with advocacy.
But I think you raised a very good point. I mean, David, we should probably, you know, I think at the end of the climate comedy thing, we suggest that, you know, students can join the Sunrise Movement or one of the global national organizations, Fridays for the Future. And that's the way to stay involved. But I think also part of the discussion that should flow from these plays is, you know, what is happening on our campus or in our community in which people can get involved. Usually there's something specific that's going on within your community that you can raise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we often, and for films, we always have a discussion guide or questions to get the discussion going, and usually have resources and if you, especially if you have local panelists, they have, you'll have a kid from Sunrise, you'll have, people who know locally the issues and will enlist people. But we also want to trigger people in all fields to figure out what they can do, in a bigger way than I mean, joining often helps, but that young people have such creative minds, they should be able to find themselves there, doing something important. I don't want to diminish that when, when it's not just signing a petition or writing to someone, it's like, go ahead, write that letter to the editor, go ahead, do this, create a business. There's so many things that people can do that you don't want to limit them in your suggestions.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, and in fact, go ahead, Maha. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
sorry. So, okay, you've raised a really good point that one thing is that we can show it to, as I know that you guys have planned to stage it to in universities that are in different fields, so that all of them are mobilized.
Right.
I take my suggestion back that, okay, like even if it's performed at Napa, that's the actor community, that's the performing arts related students, and then they can do something about it. If they're aware, then they can do something about it in their field. Then I think it should be taken to business schools also, because they do the corporate jobs and all, and they have to be more mindful. So taking it to different universities of different majors, and then maybe we can have, like, after the performances, we can ask them to have an improv session about, if you are in the position of power, what will you do? So just to get them thinking that we're also thinking of students getting, we're also thinking of the solutions that we have to take forward as professionals once they graduate.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah, these are all great ideas. And excuse me, 2 weeks ago, we had the session was, we had the Massachusetts College of Arts and Design talking about the teach-in that they did last year and the one that they're going to be doing this year. And at the end of their teach-in, they actually had a climate commitment for each student to sign that included various options of things for them to do. And we will be sharing that as well.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm sure that you're in a position to gather lots of suggestions like that.
Yeah, there are lots of great ideas, and
Yeah.
the challenge is sort of how do we, as Maha was saying, get beyond our communities and to reach to the business schools and the beyond the schools to the businesses and to the political leaders, et cetera.
Yeah.
Well, I know for those of us who are on the East Coast, it's of the U.S., which is the majority of the people here, that it's almost 10 o'clock at night. So this has been wonderful. Maha, thank you very much for joining us. And we will be in conversation as to about if you can help us with translation, and we're going to be rolling out with our blog post and other things to raise awareness. And Winnie, I know you have your email blast coming out tomorrow to your Bullfrog community, and I want to share that with our list of about 3,000 people. And as Even says, that this is all about being stronger together. So
Mm.
thank you all for being part of our session tonight and for being part of our community.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you for doing all
Night all.
this.
Yeah, thank you for
all are
hosting
doing
this.
wonderful work. I'm so inspired. Right
Yeah.
now.
So Annie, I hope people at your school produce these plays.
Oh, I think they will.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.